Good afternoon, everyone. We are so very thankful that you are here. My name is Mary Lee. That is my first and last name. I am the chair of the Democratic Party here in Frederick County. We're so very thankful that we're able to host this Congressional District 6 forum today. Currently, we only have 2 of the 5 confirmed participants here. I don't know if the other 3 will be showing up or not, but if they do, they'll just jump in on whatever question that is posed at that moment. The 2 gentlemen here will introduce themselves in just a moment, but the one on the end is Kiambo White, and then we have Ethan Wechtaluk as well. Again, thank you for being here. We are live streaming this event. Assuming everything goes well, we'll continue to live stream. If there's any issues where it stops live streaming, we will at least upload what we have to our YouTube page so that it's available thereafter. The candidates are aware of the topics. They are not aware of the questions. There will be a 1-minute opening for each candidate. There will be 6 prepared questions, potentially time for a 7th. Of course, if there's only 2, we definitely have time for those questions. Each will be given 90 seconds to respond to their question. There will be 1 rebuttal with a 30-second response, and each will have 90 seconds for their closing. The club leaders and I have worked very hard to ensure that this is a successful forum. We appreciate those of you that are here and anyone that may be watching on live stream. We do ask for civility throughout this conversation. For any questions that might come up, we do ask for civility, not only between the candidates, but also with those that are here. We have our 2 timekeepers, which is Laura Westorp, President of the Women's Democratic League, and also a candidate for Senate District 4, and President of United Democrats, Maureen Grazak. Thank you so much for being here. Patty Clements is live streaming. She is an incoming Central Committee member. And Mark Jafari is our moderator, who will introduce himself in just a moment. Let's take a look and see if there's anything else that we need to say in advance. No, looks like we're good. Okay, so Mark, if you want to take just 1 moment and introduce yourself, and then jump right into today's questions and forum. Thank you. Oh, we do have some snacks in the back for anyone that would like some snacks as well.
Thank you very much, Mary. Again, my name is Mark Jafari. I am doing the moderating. I am not running for office. I have no dog in this race personally. I'm a Democrat. I've been here for about 16 years in Frederick County, and I'm looking forward to a civil and lively debate today. So thank you so much for the 2 candidates who are here. We will go ahead and get started. Just to repeat what Mary said, we'll do 6. We'll probably do more. I mean, unless you guys have some place to be. Since we've only got 2 people here, that's going to cover a lot of ground. Always good to put that on the video as well. So with that said, we'll go ahead and jump right into it. With the first question, I'll start right here. Sorry. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Yes. Okay.
We picked Mark to take direction for.
We'll start with your opening statement. So please start. Go ahead, yeah.
Hi, good morning. Good afternoon. This green zone, right?
Yeah.
The microphone.
You're good.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kiambo.
Mark, can you give him that microphone, please?
Oh, okay.
Once we're live streaming,
Start the clock over.
We'll starting over. We will start with the introductions. And please look to Maureen for your timekeeping. You guys can kind of angle towards it. That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's right. Yes, you get 1 minute, of course, with the opening. Maureen will lift the card when you have to go. She'll lift the card when you have 15 seconds, and then lift the card when it's the end.
That's me.
Please
Okay.
go ahead.
All right, good Saturday, family. Hi, my name is Kiambo White. People call me friends and family, call me Bo, amongst other things. I'm here running to be your next congressperson in the 6th Congressional District. For me, trouble is like a weed that overgrows. It can rapidly choke out any life and good things around it. And unfortunately, I would call the convict right, has done nothing. And one thing they've done is try to separate us and showcase our differences. One of the things we have a similarity. And unfortunately, I feel that the current elected Democrats, even some independents, haven't spoken up loudly enough, passionate enough on a daily basis. And unfortunately, I think that includes some of the folks who are currently elected. And I feel we just must continue to work and grow and develop, because whatever happens today will lead to our futures, whether you're a young lady like this young lady here in the middle, just still get her life going, or someone who's a little more seasoned. But right now, we need to make sure we have the right people in place to put our best efforts forward and make sure our communities at large are serviced in proper fashion. And one of the quotes I love quotes. So, and Martin Luther King once said, "True peace does not come in the absence of tension. It is the presence of justice." And that is something we must continue to seek and not let people tell us who we are and what we're to be. Thank you.
My name is Ethan Wechtaluk, and I am running to represent the 6th District here in the House of Representatives. 15 years ago, I started building technology for the federal government, the FDA, Medicare, the VA, systems millions of Americans depend on but never see. Last year, I saw a surveillance partnership involving Palantir that I believed crossed the line, and I said so. They told me to stay quiet, and I didn't. So they pushed me out and questioned my mental health on the way out the door, like raising an alarm was a symptom instead of duty. If I could do it again, I would do it faster. That's the choice in front of you. One opponent waits to see where I stand, then quietly stands there a few weeks later. Data centers, Medicare for all, taxing the rich, one after another. The other spending millions of his own money to buy a seat that he's decided he's owed. Neither has ever risked a paycheck, to tell you the truth. I have. I'm a dad in Clarksburg, and I'm not here to manage expectations. I'm here to earn your vote.
Alexis, do you want me? No, I don't. I have one. Is this the opening
This one
statement?
does live stream, that one does the audience.
You have 1.5 minutes for your opening statements. Please look to more.
1 minute.
1 minute, sorry, one minute for the opening statement. Look to over here when Maureen gives you the yellow, that means you got 15 seconds left. Red means please.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
Apologies for being late. Just came from my kiddo's birthday party for my toddler and school. Anyway, it's a long story. I'm Alexis Goldstein. Until recently, I worked for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The date that Doge arrived at my agency on February 7, 2025, USAID had already been fed to the wood chipper, and we were in community. I'm a Pride Union member. I was a part of CFPB's union, which is National Treasury Employees Union 335. We basically got tipped off. So when Doge showed up at my agency without badges and looking at CFPB computers, I pulled out my camera and I started asking them what their name was, and they said, "We don't know. We don't need to tell you our name. We're authorized to be here, and we're calling security on you." And they did, and I was placed on admin leave for about a year. But I have watched so many different friends and colleagues at different federal agencies be attacked. I have watched members of our community be attacked, and I have seen so many people in District 6 running towards the danger, whether it is people who are doing GoFundMes for immigrant families who have been snatched by ICE, or people who are just organizing to save their jobs. And I think that we deserve a representative who's just as brave as the people who make this district, and that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Alexis. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. We have not had our first question, so we'll have our first question, and we're going to jump into the deep end of the pool, so keep it real interesting. First of all, what will you do? This is voting rights and redistricting. What will you do to protect the right to vote, ensure it is accessible, free, and fair? And we'll start with Kiambo.
Can you pass them?
Yeah, thank you.
Kiambo, sorry.
Yeah, that's
Kiambo,
great.
sorry
Yeah.
about that.
That's all right. Thank you, sir.
I wanted to write it down.
So once again, well, thank you for that question. So obviously the proposed Civil War during Reconstruction, we had the 13, 14, and 15 amendments ratified. And then unfortunately, because of different pressures, we had 2 senators and we had over 100 folks who were elected. I mean, even radicals like Thaddeus Stevens said, if we don't continue along the path of making the free men, basically I'm ad-libbing, having their right to services, rights to vote, and also protecting them, then it'll revert back to what the South is. And currently, right now, we obviously know what's currently going on. Again, once again, the convict right hasn't done anything to show any progress the last few years, except trying to divide us further. Obviously, but what's even more importantly, currently, they are really harming folks who are dying, only dying in these makeshift camps they call them warehouses, but now they're really targeting black, brown, and even poor rural white folks with the cutting of the different districts across the country. So for me, I would want to try to reinforce the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, but also re-educate or re-inform folks of what our history was and showcase the only reason we haven't made much more progress in the last 150 plus years is because some of the fear that took place in the early 1870s, and now, right now, the same thing's being tapped into right now. So I would definitely want to further additional information to our communities at large, push the John Lewis Rights Act, but also go back to some civic engagement and information younger ages as well as older folks as well, to inform what the true facts are about voting and the progress which can be made.
Go ahead, please, Ethan. Whenever you're ready. Wait, let's make sure you're ready.
Ready?
We're ready? Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't going to take a step back in history quite as far as Bo did, but I was going to talk about the fact that recently, about 6 weeks ago, we saw the Supreme Court gut the Voting Rights Act, and that is a big issue. But this has been an ongoing process. It started with eroding pre-clearance, and then it started with looking at Section 5, and now Section 2. And this is a fundamental problem with voting and how voting is done here in America. So we have to start by passing, as Bo mentioned, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act to move forward and enshrine many of these in law. That has cleared the House twice, 21 and 22. We have to be honest about something. We have to kill the filibuster in order to get it through the Senate. Voting rights should never be held up by a supermajority. This is just, it's killed it. So I would call on Senate colleagues to kill the filibuster in order to get this passed. We also have to be honest about other voting issues. We need to ensure that there's automatic and same-day registration, and we also have to make Election Day a national holiday. Too many people are held up by the inability to vote, and that's a big issue. I know we mentioned briefly about redistricting. We have to fight fire with fire right now to push back against what the Republicans are trying to do, but ultimately we need to end up with nonpartisan commissions that draw the districts that are fair and represent the people within those districts.
Thank you. And Alexis?
Bo, I'm glad you brought up Reconstruction. I do think that we keep having this weird cycle in this country where we have a Reconstruction and then we have a redemption. If you're not familiar with the term redemption, it's what the Southerners called the racial reign of terror that descended after Reconstruction when we finally had Black representation in the country for the first time. I feel like I've certainly read books that talk about the Civil Rights Act being a second Reconstruction, and I feel like we have these powers that people that are in power right now that are trying to bring back, like, I guess the third redemption, I don't know. But John Lewis Voting Rights Act, absolutely. I had the honor of working underneath the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, which is one of the oldest civil rights institutions there is, when I worked at Americans for Financial Reform, and I always followed their vote recommendations, and that is among them. I think we need to make DC a state. I think that is long overdue, and the last time that Democrats had the House and the Senate, we didn't do that. And I think that we need to make sure that we are passing new laws at the state level, which is obviously not the role of a representative, but I hope that whoever eventually fills this seat is working closely with their state representatives to make sure that on the ground people's vote is protected.
Thank you. Just a reminder, the yellow means there's 30 seconds left. Red means please stop. So just wait till Mary puts the signs up real quick. Thank you. Okay, well, this time, the next time, we're going to start with Nathan first. Ethan. I'll get your names right. Don't worry about it. Don't mind me. I'll never forget your face, but I won't forget your name. Don't worry about it.
I can call you Clark.
You can call me whatever you want. I've got so many names that's good. So let's start with Ethan. Kind of going along with that, where would you begin to correct the problems with the current immigration system?
And I have just 90 seconds for that one?
90 seconds, yes.
Okay, well,
Middle East is next.
yeah. Well, it starts by abolishing DHS. I mean, abolishing ICE is a minimum, but DHS as an institution is built on fear. It came out of post 9/11, 2003, and it's everything in DHS has been corrupted by this fear. It started with the Lake and Riley Act. April is not here to defend herself, so I'll call it what it is. She voted to authorize the Lake and Riley Act, which started us down the pathway towards detaining people without due process. We have to go back, but ICE can't be fixed. It has to be abolished. And in its place, we can start with a humane system that's grounded on treating people fairly, giving them rights and due process, keeping families together, and ensure that we're processing asylum claims and refugee claims adequately. There's always going to be a need for enforcement, and there's always going to be a need to keep our borders secure. But that can be done with clear oversight, clear protections to ensure that it doesn't run amok the way that we're seeing right now. We do not need terror squads roaming our streets, snatching up people of color, simply because they may or may not be an immigrant. So we have to fix this. And I believe it can be fixed, but to fix it, we're gonna have to start over. And it can be a little bit scary, but I think it's important to hold our government accountable for the decisions that have been made. DHS is where it's at as a result of both Democrats and Republicans fueling it. So let's hit pause, scrap it, and build something in its place that is accountable with oversight and responsible to the people.
Alexis is next. Also a reminder, you each get one rebuttal. If there's something that you feel strongly about, maybe save it for that topic. So Alexis, whenever you guys are ready.
Ready?
Okay.
I also agree we need to abolish ICE. I don't know that I would go so far as to abolish DHS because TSA is in DHS and so is USCIS, which is the institution that does asylum and refugee admissions. They're purely a benefits agency. They do green cards, visas. But I do think we need to start with abolishing ICE and drastically reducing immigration law enforcement budgets in this country. ICE is now the largest funded law enforcement agency in the country. I also think we need to think seriously about what do we do when we have power back, right? Because we're all in shock because all these people without felonies are being deported. But all of that is allowable by the law. There was just a policy decision, a regulatory decision to say, you know what, we're not going to deport people if they don't have felony convictions. We didn't decriminalize border crossing the last time we had a Dem supermajority. If we're going to get serious about humane treatment, we need to make sure the laws match what we want them to be, such that even if another fascist takes the government, that you cannot weaponize the system that exists. You know what, that brings me on so much. So I think we need to take a wholesale look at everything, but I think we've left too much to the regulatory apparatus when it comes to immigration. And the next time that we have power, we really need to make sure we have this machine, the machine wants to be fed, that every time we build a detention center, it's very difficult to get rid of it. We have to make sure we are reducing the amount of people in detention, both immigrants and otherwise.
Thank you. And Kiambo.
Thank you. Once again, thank you for your question. So to kind of pick up some of my brothers and sisters just up here said, we definitely, with the Lincoln Riley Act, increasing funding in ICE, we have to acknowledge what is truly being done and why it's being done. Certain folks, again, just because you're white doesn't mean you're devils, because you're black doesn't mean you're trying to get something for free on all these dumb stereotypes that we have. But we know with the way our climate is and the way the country is changing, this is fearful for folks. This way it was fearful when I mentioned what happened after slavery, the Reconstruction. That's what they're going after. Most of the people you see are immigrants who they're targeting, obviously from certain black and brown countries, and it's okay if you're South American, as long as you look a certain way with Elon Musk's people, then that's okay. But what is the overall, what did people really do? They came here for a better life. And most of the jobs a lot of these folks are doing, they're not getting those substantial benefits like from welfare, and they would say all this, stipends and different welfare benefits. I've been on welfare. I'm from here. Last time, it was only 15 years ago, I had a bad accident. So most of those folks are putting forth the best effort to contribute to their communities. And yes, for those folks who are doing wrong, like any American citizen, they should be punished for it. And if they aren't here illegally, then we have to follow that. So we need something in place. But we have to acknowledge the true root of why this is causing such issues. And then also, quickly, the Cable Institute really had a survey about how much money the non-immigrants have brought to this country as compared to deficits. They've contributed $14.5 trillion since 1989 to 2025. So I would work on that information and focus on what the true facts are and continue to work and actually defund these different agencies who harm our brothers and sisters.
Thank you very much. This next question, we're going to start off with Alexis. Again, this is about healthcare, and it's not really mental health, but okay. Are you prepared to take up reforms? Are you prepared to take up real reform to Social Security and Medicare to ensure future solvency? And what specific reforms would you be willing to support?
Right now, there's a cap on the amount that we pay into Social Security above a certain income level. I think we should lift that cap. That is the number one reform I would pursue. If we need additional revenue streams after we do that, I guess we could examine it, but I don't want to see any restrictions or negative consequences to Social Security. Sorry, was there a second part of the question in addition to Social Security?
I think you just gave what specific reforms would you be willing to support? You basically
that's the main one, is lifting the cap and making sure that people of all wealth levels are contributing no matter how much income they make.
Okay. Thank you. Right. We'll go next. It's going to be Kiambo. A question, or are you good?
Can you repeat it, please?
Sure, no problem. Yeah, anytime you guys want me to repeat the question, please just ask. I know about the third person, it's been about 5 minutes, so are you prepared to take up real reform to Social Security and Medicare to ensure their future solvency? And what specific reforms would you be willing to support?
Sure. Yes, I'm a firm believer, like we all grew up, if you don't work, you don't eat, you make a deal, you stick to it. And obviously, as our folks are living longer, even some folks are living longer with more health issues, we have to have some kind of adjustments. Now, first, I would definitely implement putting back in place, it's a little bit different, the Affordable Care Act subsidies, which in turn can kind of limit future issues, hopefully. We also need to have some kind of measures in place with insurance companies and drug companies, which again, not just affects older folks or folks who have insulin needs. This affects us every step of the way. Obviously we live in a country also where it's stressful, we're being pitted against each other, mental health and substance abuse. So I totally do agree that we have to, again, whether it's increasing, as you say, the caps on the higher income wagers who we know won't utilize those benefits as much as then somehow comparing to the folks who are really in need. And right now, we're cutting the different benefits for individuals, whether they're work requirements now, which have been put in, we start early next year, which will affect not only financial, food stamps, but also their health care. So I definitely think that those measures are in place, as well as maybe trying to get some early information to and I say younger folks, people how to take care of themselves a little bit better, which can hopefully curb a lot of costs where they're going to emergency rooms or maybe not getting to see their normal primary care physicians and things. So yes, I definitely think we could need to adjust that, even some of the European models, which pay a little bit more, which goes back to more services, because I've been lucky enough to travel in Lithuania, Finland, where they contribute a lot more in taxes for overall benefits as they get older for them and their families.
Thank you. And Ethan?
I mean, if we're going to talk about Medicare, we have to talk about Medicare for all. They are inexplicably linked. And so Medicare for all, universal single-payer healthcare system, everyone in the country would be paying into it by taxes. That is going to fundamentally transform Medicare. However, that is the dream. There's a reality of getting there. So I agree with both of my colleagues up here that we do need to remove the cap on income. We also need to lower the Medicare age to 60 while we're doing that to ensure that it remains open and accessible. On Social Security, I think one of the biggest issues in protecting Social Security is preventing it from being privatized. There is a massive push right now on the Republican side of the government to privatize Social Security. There could be many people who would advocate that's going to be beneficial, it would open it up to market influence. It's also going to open it up to market risk. The stock market doesn't always go up, the stock market also goes down, and right now we're living in a potential bubble. That is a big risk. So we have to protect Social Security from being privatized. We also have to ensure that Social Security benefits are being paid out appropriately. Too many people who are on SSDI, which is Social Security disability payments, are not getting adequate benefits and are handicapped by what they are receiving. So we have to ensure that benefit claims are being paid out appropriately and the correct amounts, and it's being tied to cost of living to ensure that people are getting what they need. But I think a lot of this goes back to Medicare for all, and that's how we're going to ensure that Medicare remains solvent.
Okay, thank you. Let me know when you're ready. Okay, next question. This is a question on housing, economic inequality. How would you balance housing and income inequality with promoting economic growth? And we'll start here with Kiambo.
So once again, obviously we all know the costs of all our goods and services we need to utilize, and obviously housing, shelter, food, or probably and water, obviously the most primary issues. And generally, a lot of folks are aware that a lot of things start at a local level, whether it's here in Middletown to Frederick to Cumberland. It's basically license, the different whether it's licenses, the different zoning, and all stems from your local communities. And obviously, it's a part for federal government to be in place or to take their part. But we have to really make sure that there's going to be hopefully open bids for new constructions and some for all minority or women development. We need to make sure that they're expanding out so their core base, because we know, like as any other business, they want money and start what's coming to the seats. So we need to make sure that that is currently being targeted, and then obviously hopefully development of education, job opportunities. Because I truly believe, yes, we know some folks on all different black, white, gay, or straight who sometimes don't pull their weight, but majority of us really trying to get day by day and trying to get through the day and not hurt themselves or somebody else. They just want to live. And we need to make sure we're providing opportunities for individuals to have better employment opportunities, whether it's I'm a union rep, I worked for the building trades for years. I've represented nurses and teachers, and I've represented folks who are entrepreneurs or home health care workers or janitors. And we need to make sure whatever career you're choosing, that there's a reasonable wage involved in that for what the cost of living is now and what it will be. And that's obviously housing is one of the primaries, because if you don't have a roof over your head, then you don't have a job, and then you can't provide for your family, and then those are all things that go hand in hand. So definitely target local businesses, enhancing employment opportunities, and either even further education, depending upon what you want to do with your future.
Okay, thank you. Next is Ethan. Can you repeat that question? Sure. How would you balance housing and income inequality with promoting economic growth?
And it's a great question, and I think the balance is that they are linked. When someone has a roof over their head, they are happier, they are healthier, they are more productive. So when we're talking about economic growth, it is automatically and always and forever linked to housing. So we have to invest in housing in this country, and that means large-scale investments in public housing. It has a stigma. I think it's a stigma that's false. We have to move past it to ensure that we are building housing for people who are most at risk and most disadvantaged. We also have to take a strong look at the Section 8 program that currently exists. It is chronically underfunded, and that is by design. So we need to fund Section 8 fully and reduce the backlog to get people into homes that already exist. There are parts of this district, like in Cumberland, there's actually not a housing shortage, there's a housing surplus. We just can't get the people into those homes, so we have to fix that. There are other parts of this district where there's a housing shortage. We have to incentivize developers to build affordable housing in these communities, close to transit if possible, but we also have to look at making sure that people who need to be able to buy them can buy them. That starts by keeping Wall Street out of the housing market. We also have to make sure that we're building rentable housing that is affordable at market rent prices, but also protect those renters with the National Renters Bill of Rights. Housing is a fundamental right in society, and we have to do everything that we can to protect it. And if we do, we will reap the economic benefits of that.
Thank you. And Alexis, can you read the question, or?
No, I'm okay, but is this 60 or 90 seconds?
This is 90 seconds. 90
Okay.
seconds, yes.
So I agree with both Bo and Ethan. I agree we need more public housing. Section 9 of the housing law actually has a lot of protections that protect all of us, whether or not we're in public housing or not. Sort of establishes a floor because it says that you can't charge more than 30% of someone's income in rent in public housing, and that kind of creates like a floor of rents, and we all pay more than that. I worked on Wall Street for 7 years before, during, and after the financial crisis, and I got a really front row seat to how they take our houses and financialize them, but it's not just our houses. They take every asset that we have and structure it and do some creative financial engineering with it. That was my job when I worked there. And on Wall Street, we call that financialization or commodification, but essentially, over the years, we've done less and less creating real goods and services as an economy, and more just financialization, just debt servicing. And one of the ways that we could turn that around is to take Wall Street out of the picture. If you think about it though, the Social Security question, we shouldn't privatize it, I completely agree. There are very few things you can invest your savings in that's public. Savings bond, municipal bonds, treasury bills, that's it, and Social Security. Everything else, Wall Street facilitates. Wall Street gets a cut. So all of that is decisions that our government has made for us, policy decisions that we can unmake. We can spend federal government money building more housing, driving down prices. I don't think that it's a binary choice. We've made the other choice. We've made the choice to value our economy over housing, but just the people at the very top of our economy, and we can unmake that choice.
Thank you. Is ready? Okay. Next question is going to be starting with Ethan. What are your views on military spending for Ukraine? Question mark. Israel? Question mark. Taiwan. So those are three separate issues. So they're not all lumped up. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Ethan.
This question is personal for me, as my family is Ukrainian, but I will not display any bias here, and my answer is going to be the same across the. We should not be spending money on our military to support any of them in armed conflicts. The United States has historically overspent on military spending, both domestically and in support of foreign governments, and look at our returns on that. The Pentagon hasn't passed an audit in nearly 3 decades, but yet they continually to recklessly send bombs to other countries. When it comes to Israel, that is a genocide, and we are complicit in that genocide every time we send weapons over to Israel. Offensive, defensive, it does not matter. We should not be supplying Israel with weapons. But before I get called anti-Semitic for saying that, which I have many times, we should not be sending offensive and defensive weapons to Ukraine. We should not be sending offensive and defensive weapons to Taiwan. We should not be sending them anywhere. That is just not our role in the United States. We should be focused on humanitarian and diplomatic solutions to provide support to those countries if they need it. but the time has long passed for us to be this global police force and investing in foreign wars at our own detriment. We need to look at our own house and keep our own house in order before we continue to arm foreign governments, especially when they are committing genocide.
Thank you. To Alexis, repeat the question. You good?
I'm good.
Okay.
So in Israel, I'm Jewish, and I'm also a longtime member of an organization called If Not Now, which has been around since 2014, in Operation Protective Edge, which was one of the more violent prior to October 7th incursions into Gaza by Israel. I am in support of the Block the Bombs Act, which would condition any future military aid to Israel on a series of conditions, including them obeying international law. I also believe that what is happening in Gaza is a genocide. I was part of Staffers for Ceasefire, which was a group of Biden administration officials that put out an anonymous letter to the New York Times and then did a protest in front of the White House, and then two of my close friends publicly resigned in protest. Tariq Kabash, who was at the Department of Education and is Palestinian American, and Lily Greenberg Hall, who was the first but not the only Jewish American to resign in protest over the genocide in Gaza from the Biden administration. Taiwan, I would defer to Taiwanese people, but my understanding is that if we were to defund Taiwan, China would immediately take advantage of it. I would need to think more about that, but I don't think I'm in favor of not sending defensive weapons to Taiwan, and I don't think I'm in favor of not sending defensive weapons to the Ukraine in the middle of a war. But I am in favor of the Block the Bombs Act with regard to Israel.
Thank you. And Kiambo,
Thank you, sir.
what are your views on military spending for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, sir?
So unfortunately, from the benefits that we have here in America, we have not just invested, we have taken advantage of countries from around the world, and that's why we have military bases in Germany. So people who have protected us, we've been honest about it, has given us buffers. And unfortunately, some people don't agree with how we live our lives, and that's their right, as we don't agree with some other folks. For me, I have friends who are from Russia and Ukrainian, from Ukraine, and I don't think we can blatantly just pull back, but I do agree that the reason we're doing that, and the reason we should continue to do that, is to try to keep a buffer of what Putin really wants. He wants to spread throughout Europe. He wants to get that old power back, which he's not going to get. But right now, there's too many people playing checkers. Other people are playing chess. So I think we have to continue to do that. When it comes to Israel, I never really understand this because again, we're in Detroit, largest population, Middle Eastern people outside the Middle East. I have friends who are anyway. I got friends who are Jewish. Family I grew up with. My stepfather was Jewish, so I can't see why can we point out that Netanyahu was a horrible individual, and his supporters, who his cabinet, are the same kind of folks. But yet we shouldn't be killing and genocide once again these Palestinians who are doing nothing but trying to live. And then with Taiwan, obviously a lot of that is business, semiconductors, rare minerals is why this current administration is even interested in that, and maybe why they're holding back a little bit. But we know once we don't support them, China will move in. So I think there's a place for us, maybe not to be the world's police force, as maybe we once were, but if we are reaping the benefits of these countries, the individuals, and all their services, we should actually be there to protect them because we're protecting ourselves.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question, we're going to start off with Alexis. What measures will you support to combat climate change and promote environmental sustainability?
So my first activism was Montgomery County student environmental activist, and we opposed the ICC freeway, so we took a loss there. I've taken a lot of losses in my organizing career, but this is an issue that is very important to me, and I think one of the sort of first radicalizing moments for me was when I learned about what Shell Oil was doing in Nigeria and to the Ogoni people, and I watched a documentary called Delta Force, and it talked about Ken Saro-Wiwa, who was one of the leaders of the Ogoni people, and Shell Oil conspired to put him to death. And because of his activism against Shell Oil, because Shell was essentially having these pipes that were open, they would flare, people would be burned, it was a horrible situation. Anyway, so what I would do is I would invest in climate remediation anytime we have any sort of stimulus package. I think Congress is really gridlocked, but we've been able to do things like the IRA. The Obama administration was able to do the Recovery Act. One of the things that they did during the Recovery Act is suspend there's all these like weird laws that are historic. One of them's called the Fair Cloth Limit, and it prevents us from building any new public housing above the 1990 unit. But for the purposes of the Recovery Act, the Obama administration suspended the Fair Cloth Limit, which allowed the state of Massachusetts to build new public housing that was climate smart from the get-go. So I think climate is just something we have to do every time we're building. Whatever we are investing in, we have to make sure that it is a strong climate situation, and we have to think about floodplains.
Okay, thank you. Next going to be to Kiambo. Read the question. Sure. What measures will you support to combat climate change and promote environmental sustainability?
Okay, so once again, it's something I never understand either, why the folks who don't believe in climate change or don't put the proper investments and feel somehow the world has this big super volcano or Sharknado, that we're somehow only certain people will be targeted. That just makes no sense. Again, the solar panels, or the wind turbines, everything has its place. You know, right now, the greenhouse emissions, we pull out the Paris Climate Accords, and we know just because someone else isn't doing something doesn't mean you do it. Like our parents told us when we jump off the bridge, are you going to do it? So we need to lead in that fashion. We need to continue to do that. Now, whether it's electrical, again, whether it's our power grid systems, our transportation. I live in some cities that have, can be challenging sometimes with the traffic, but also in the train lines. But that saves costs and goods and services. So we all need clean food, water, clean air, and food protections. I don't see why this is a huge thing to say we need to invest. We haven't invested the proper dollars in the last, say, 50 years, and now we're behind a lot of European countries, a lot of the Chinese in all these infrastructure things which can benefit us and help climate. You can always do your part. I'm a huge recycler. I try my best. If I see something on the ground, I pick it up. And people may think that's a little goofy, but it starts with you as an individual. But we definitely have to put forth other political measures and laws and policies that enhance the growth potential for these sectors, which in turn can help enhance with employment opportunities. And then also we have the huge problem as well from Detroit, the Flint water issue from several years ago, which has spread around other parts of the country, are hugely important as well.
Thank you. And Ethan?
Yeah, I have publicly pledged to support the Green New Deal. I took and signed that pledge. You can see them on their website. That is the base of where we need to start. It is an important piece of legislation. Obviously, it's not perfect. It needs a little bit of work, but it's already been out there. It's already been discussed, and I think that's where we need to go to grow from. I'm also a firm believer that the EPA is a critically important agency that has been gutted by the Trump administration and prior Republican administrations. That needs to be elevated. We need it to be the Secretary, or Department of the Environment. We need a Secretary of the Environment. We need to fight climate change and fight the climate crisis with the urgency that it deserves. I look out and I see this young girl sitting in the audience as a father of 3 daughters, an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old. This matters to me just like I know it's going to matter for you to her, and it's critically important that we preserve our climate and our environment. But on a local level, we also have to talk about data centers. We have data centers that are being built across 3 counties here in the 6th district that have the potential to ravage our environment. And it's happening all across the country. Meta is trying to build 7 gas turbines at a plant down in Louisiana. We have to rein in big tech and other big oil and big polluters to hold them accountable for what they're doing. And that starts with the Green New Deal and the Secretary of the Environment to make them pay for what they've done in the past and make them pay for what they're doing today. So tomorrow, our kids will have a future that they can appreciate and enjoy an environment that has not been destroyed.
Thank you very much. So far, we've had 6 questions so far. We've got plenty of time. Again, if you guys are okay with it, we'll kind of keep going with this. We thank you again for showing up today. I know you're busy. Sorry.
How many more questions to go?
Just gonna do 3 more, if that's okay.
Can I use my rebuttal?
Go ahead. Yeah, please
What
do.
is it, at 30 seconds?
Yes, 30 seconds or whatever. Yes, please do.
So I want to talk about data centers just in case it doesn't come up separately. I believe that we should ban AI data centers federally. There was a Rolling Stone piece, Meet the Candidate Who Wants to Ban AI Data Centers Federally. That's me. It went up yesterday. I believe that because I think both it is a climate crisis, as Ethan mentioned, but also it is a financial crisis waiting to happen. It is a water issue, it is a sound issue, it is a utility issue. They smell in Adamstown, and it is also one of the major drivers of carbon emissions right now. And for what? To make a Pikachu that's like, I don't know, crayoning on the face of like the Apple logo or something? Like people, this is not curing cancer, and it reminds me of what I heard at the CFPB about crypto. This is the future of finance, just wait, it's early internet, hold on. And guess what? With crypto, it was all made up. And in AI, the only use case I see is for the military, and it's being used. There's one report showing that faulty AI led to the death of 170 people in a Rwandan all-girls school that was wrongly targeted. So, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to use your rebuttal as well?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead,
Give us
please.
one
I mean, just go ahead.
Give us a second.
Sure, hold on one second.
Rebuttal?
Rebuttal, yes.
Gotcha, I'm ready.
Okay.
So Wednesday I was out in Cumberland in Allegheny County, and the topic of data centers came up. And one of the things that a constituent said to me was, I'm very worried that if we flat out ban data centers, we in Cumberland are going to miss out on the next technological advantage. We don't want polluting data centers. We don't want them to destroy our community. We don't want them to take our power, take our water. But we don't want to lose out. Too many communities in the 6th district are losing out. And so yes, data centers represent an existential threat to our environment. But if done correctly, and that's what the Sanders AOC moratorium is taking a look at, if done correctly, they don't have to destroy and they can provide jobs.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to also use a rebuttal, Kiambo?
Yes, this is more of a comment. Something popped in my head. I was reading something yesterday where they say for every 100-word email we use ChatGPT, that's like basically the same size. We use that much water for like the young lady's bottle of water in front of the timekeeper. And I think, and again, right, like any other kind of progress, whether it's coal or being able to bartering system from the late 1800s to posting through the Carnegie guys with all the steel, there are sacrifices, but we can't leave it up to individual businesses to say we're going to do right because they care about money. And of course, we want our communities to benefit from that, but it has to be some kind of measures put in place to do it properly and make sure we can hold them accountable.
Thank you very much. The next question, this is going to be for public safety. How will we go about stopping the flow of fentanyl as well as providing social services to combat addiction? And we're going to start with Kiambo.
Again, I mean, obviously drugs are, people do drugs for whatever their own personal reasons are. It's the way people drink, it's the way they can do whether it's a box line or someone doing meth or fentanyl, they're trying to cover whatever issues they may have or just make some struggles they're going through. So we need to acknowledge that and show they're getting help and going to therapy. I'm a huge proponent of therapy, and I think there's different degrees of it and what the benefits can reap for an individual. So I feel like enhancing those opportunities for folks to kind of get services that are needed, but also hold them accountable once they get those services. If they try to limit the fentanyl, again, we know it comes from China, but yet still we buy so many of our goods from them, right? It's not an easy answer, but I don't know what kind of measures can be put in place that they keep shipping or allowing things that come from their ports into us, then we're going to kind of cap that. And we also can't keep pointing the blame at other countries who really have no major investment in that. But I think awareness on the issues, some kind of mental health services, and then putting in place some kind of legislation that really has some teeth to it that really can help other countries or individuals who make money off of these drugs and kill, again, once again, our brothers and sisters because they're going through certain issues in their life. I think something has to be put in place. So again, something a little more bite to it than we currently have. And also to show people you're not a horrible person if you're going through that, but you have to pull yourself up and then keep fighting through and keep find a better way to live than kind of killing yourself in that form.
Next up is going to be Ethan. Are you going to repeat the question, or are you good?
Yeah, can you repeat it?
Sure. How will you go about stopping the flow of fentanyl as well as providing social services to combat addiction?
Yeah, well, I can say that the best way to combat addiction is not by increasing the police in our communities. Despite Wes Moore's promise to increase spending for police in the state of Maryland, that's not going to help. Addiction is a disease. It's a mental health disorder. And for people who are suffering through addiction, they need treatment and they need care. Under universal health care system, they can get that care, they can get destigmatized care, and they're not going to have to pay tens of thousands of dollars to go to some high-end fancy treatment center in Malibu. They can get real care in their communities and recover from that. It also starts by having places for people to work. The biggest issue for addiction, we saw addiction spike after the 2008 financial crisis, when so many people lost their jobs, so many people lost their homes. People turn to substances to deal with that, whether it's fentanyl or whether it's alcohol. People consume substances to numb the pain. So if we have jobs, we have opportunity, we have investments in our community, whether it's community welfare programs. And that is how we're going to stem the tide of this. There is a war on drugs that we have fought for decades. Reagan started it, did not do a great job at fighting it, and we continue to fight on it. But if we reduce the likelihood that Americans are going to consume drugs, then the supply of drugs coming into our country will diminish because America will not be an attractive market. And that starts by treating addiction for what it is, a disease, destigmatizing it, and making sure that those people have health care.
Thank you. And Alexis, can you repeat the question? Or
I'm okay.
Okay.
I mean, I think the answer to this question is ending corruption and supporting healthcare. That's the short version of it. When it comes to resources, I think Frederick County Health Department and this very library and lots of other libraries in Frederick County are doing a really good job. You can get free Narcan right out there. There's a little locker, no questions asked. You can take a free online 20-minute training about how to recognize an overdose, and then you can pick up a Narcan and have it in your car just in case you need it. And that's been a very successful program. There were 50 overdose deaths in Frederick County in 2016, and that number has drastically reduced since this program came about. I'd love to see that spread throughout the rest of the 6th district. There's a little bit in Washington County, but not so much in the rest of it. In terms of corruption, I think we have Tom Homan as the ICE chief. This is the same guy that accepted a kava bag full of $50,000 in cash, who is supposed to be the person, stopping the flow of fentanyl in the country, and instead all he's doing is like attacking us, right, and assaulting us and waging war and using like a privatized police force that the president just directs wherever he wants to direct. So I think we need to look at corruption if we want to stop the problem. I agree with both my co-panelists here. I don't think that the sort of law enforcement angle has been successful historically. I think the war on drugs has been a failure. I do agree that addiction is a disease. I do think it's a disease that can hit anyone, rich or poor. So I think we need to just make sure we don't shame people if they suffer from addiction and provide them with the right resources. And I think Frederick County is off to a good start, but we can obviously do a lot more with things like Medicare for all.
Thank you very much. Next question, we're going to start off with Ethan. Again, this is a question on infrastructure. How can you personally ensure that federal funding continues to move forward for projects like US 15 upgrades that have long been proposed but not been completed or funded?
This is another tough 90-second timeline for this one. That just continues to fight and advocate for the needs and priorities of this district. Like, Americans' roads and bridges are terrible. They're crumbling, we see it all over. And how projects are prioritized through funding from the Department of Transportation and other avenues has been weaponized by the federal government. So we have to ensure that it's not weaponized, ensure that projects are being prioritized carefully and appropriately, and ensure that money is being directed to where it needs to go. The unfortunate reality with that is looking at how we're going to fund it with taxes. The unfortunate great reality of that is by taxing billionaires and by taxing corporations effectively so that they're paying their fair share, we're going to find money for those projects. We'll find money to rebuild the Key Bridge, money for US 15, money for the Bay Bridge. Those would all be nice to have fully functional, as well as countless other projects, right? So that all starts with holding people accountable who are taking the most out of our country and our economy and making sure that they're putting that fair share back. That's the only way we're going to fund these without putting it on the backs of those of us in the room.
Thank you. And Kiambo, can you repeat the question? You good?
Repeat, please.
Okay, sure. I hope I get it right. How can you personally ensure federal funding continues to move forward for projects like US 15 upgrades that have been long proposed and not funded?
The U.S. gets, I believe, a C for infrastructure currently. We need to make sure that any of these different bids that roll with this roadwork, once again, I work with the building trades, they need to be, again, not diverse for sake of just saying have a black rep, a female, folks who are qualified, because what they've been currently doing, how this current administration is going after different cities because supposedly welfare fraud, we can do the same or even more hands for folks who are taking our dollars and not properly doing the work. Right now, we all know the horrible thing going to ballrooms, so they're saying we're not paying for it yet. These last people who contribute to the ballroom construction is getting $50 billion of our tax dollars. So those are things where we can hold folks accountable. If you got this money or if you've already spent it, why haven't this work been completed? And then have some kind of measure, either taking their businesses or penalizing their businesses for not doing those things. We also have to look at, again, we are out here in Middle Townsend, internet's not too bad, but as we all been driving around the district, internet service is horrible. I mean, you get to certain parts of this district and this state, you can't even, again, people deserve some basic infrastructure. We should have to get Starlink, which sometimes still doesn't work, what I'm being told for a lot of folks. We have to work on our maritime logistics. We have to work on the different clean energy aspects, but basically making sure folks who are getting our federal dollars and our state dollars complete the job. We have measures to hold them accountable and take back whatever we gotten from them or take their business. And this is not just, I'm not trying to be over the top with it, but those are things that pressure people. We can easily forgive a child or be scared of the dark, but we can't forgive an adult or tragic adult not looking for the light. Plato said something like Plato said along those lines, but that's what we have to do because we know they're going to do fair for us on their own.
Thank you very much. This is the last question, then we'll do a closing. So this will be Alexis. Again, this is kind of the general one, so.
wait.
Do I get to answer
Oh,
the infrastructure?
All right, sorry about
Okay,
that. I apologize. That was on my. Do you want me to repeat the question for you?
No, I'm okay.
Okay. I apologize. That's somebody.
Put the names
That's
of
on.
Oh, they're
the
not.
people who agreed to be here and aren't here.
Oh.
Sure, we can do
I'd
that.
like to know who that is.
Sure, I'll do that.
Well, we're missing tags for April and David as well.
I don't know that they.
Yeah.
Infrastructure, like all kinds of spending, is a policy choice. We've done it historically. If you look back to FDR, there was something called the Reconstruction Finance Corporation that funded massive amounts of public goods in this country. We could do that again. There's an academic named Saleh Omarova who was nominated to lead the Office of the Controller of the Currency. You might know about her if you read the Rebecca Tracey article called Who's Afraid of Saleh Omarova. She's like the preeminent expert at this agency, and she had a proposal for something called the National Investment Authority, which was a reimagining of the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. But essentially her point was one I tried to make earlier. There's no public option for savings in this country outside of municipal bonds, savings bonds, treasury bills, and social security. She was like, wouldn't it be cool if both private companies and us could invest in bridges and save our money there instead of going through our 401k, which is intermediated by Wall Street? So she had this whole cool proposal, right? Very qualified person. And then her nomination was sank by some Senate Democrats who fell prey to a red baiting scare. She's from Kazakhstan, and Republicans, including Senator Kennedy, said things like, I don't know if I should call you professor or comrade, right? Just real ugly stuff. And that is part of the reason that I'm running, is I see people in the Democratic Party too often losing fights that we could win just because they're afraid of the other side, like doing some kind of weird scare tactic. And I would also mention, Frostburg has a similar problem. They've been trying to build this solar array for 3 years, and they just can't find the right business to do it, and they've just been waiting for it for 3 years. But the last thing I'll say is we have to make choices about what we don't fund. Data centers at AR are not inevitable. We are making a policy decision right now to finance those things. They are financed by debt. We have spent $1.4 trillion on data centers as a society and only raised $600 billion in revenue. This is an emergency. We have to stop these things if we want meaningful infrastructure. We have to choose. We are making a choice, and we are not choosing infrastructure. Sorry, yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Just gonna be respectful. Sorry. So last question, again, this is kind of a general category that you were listed, so this can go into your closing however you want it. So assuming you're victorious, choose a single issue you will prioritize in the coming term, name it and describe what you want to do to accomplish it. Your single most important issue. And we'll start off with Alexis.
This is not the closing,
This is not the closing, this is just the general. This is
your last question.
Got it, okay.
This is your last question.
So my big issues are the DHS warehouse in Hagerstown, our AI data centers, and billionaires, and firing the billionaires. And I believe these are all connected. And I think the first step to solving all of these problems is a 3-step plan. Find the billionaire money, take the billionaire money, give the billionaire money back to the people. Fun fact, private equity, you've probably heard of it, $4 trillion in assets in total in this country. They have to tell the regulators where their money is. They file regular reports. There's this really cute thing called family offices. It sounds like, oh my God, family. It's the personal investment vehicles of Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. There's $6 trillion in these things. We have no idea what it's invested in. There are no reporting requirements whatsoever. In 2021, I worked with AOC to pass a bill through the House Financial Services Committee to create disclosure requirements for family offices. That's step 1, find the billionaire money. Then we can work on step 2, taking it, and step 3, giving it back to the rest of us. But that would be my day 1 priority, because who is it that's building these data centers? It's billionaires, it's not for us. Who is it that's profiting from these immigration detention centers? It's Palantir, it's Peter Thiel. So all of these issues are connected. How are people going to end up in a detention center in the first place? Because of the dragnet surveillance that the AI data center is generating. So we have to fire the billionaires. We can solve all 3 of those problems, but that bill already exists, and I would reintroduce it. AOC is no longer on the House Financial Services Committee, which is the committee I'm hoping to serve on. I have a really good relationship with the staffers on that committee, so that would be my day 1 priority.
Thank you very much. Next is going to be Kiambo. Can you repeat the question? Okay.
Definitely a few things: Fusion of Veterans Affairs, healthcare, obviously voting. But I would pick one. I'm definitely going to say right now, employment opportunities for the middle and low middle folks who either haven't had opportunities for further education or figure out what's the best fit for them. As we kind of touched base on earlier, not everyone wants to go to school. Maybe they want to become a carpenter, they want to become a barber. And these are all things that lead to effect in your healthcare lead to not having proper housing. And definitely piggybacking what Alexis said as well, a lot of these corporations who get funding to come to their individual communities, whether it's what's the name, Amazon Center or Tesla, because I work again with the unions where they promise to do things in communities. Yes, we're going to develop X amount of jobs, but they never quite say the exact amount of jobs they're going to provide. They'll give some tax money or some stipends to some board folks, but they aren't ever held accountable for the jobs that they didn't create, because they can say, well, we created 2 jobs, that's a job, but it's not holding them accountable. So figuring some way of maybe targeting, as I said earlier as well, taxing or taking back money for funding they've gotten from us, or some different tax cuts or reimbursements in local communities. But overall, providing folks with an opportunity to find something better for themselves if they want to take advantage of that. So because that goes from employment to education to protecting your housing and your health care, and then also, most importantly, be not valuable citizen, but providing our tax base for those folks who are doing these new careers that they are targeting. So I definitely say, as long as that business development probably one of the tops, because I think that leads to everything else.
Thank you very much. And finally, Ethan, repeat the question, or? Okay.
My top priority is the biggest source of inequity and inequality in this country, and that's healthcare. So on day one, we have to start by fighting for Medicare for all. When we're talking about where we're going to find the money on this, estimates say that Medicare for all, a universal single-payer healthcare system, would free up $450 billion in administrative cost burden to the federal government. It's almost $500 billion. That's how we start to pay for these things. That's how we start to pay for everything else that comes after, like universal child care, like free school breakfasts and lunches, like increasing funding for teachers. But Medicare for all would free up so many things. We talk about job loss. People are tethered to jobs because they're tethered to their health care, whether it's for themselves, their spouse, their kids. They have great ideas, they can't go about it. We're talking about people with disabilities who can't get the services and the equipment and the appointments they need. 60,000 Americans die every year waiting for health care. 500,000 Americans go bankrupt every year because of medical bills. America is the only first world country where this happens. No other country in the European Union, in Asia, no other first world country has these problems. It's only America. If we are the richest country on earth, we should be able to solve these problems. So it starts with healthcare. If people are taken care of, if they're healthy, Lord knows what we can unleash next. We might be able to find the Holy Grail. We might be able to solve any mathematical theorem that we haven't approached yet, because people are healthy. And that's where it starts, and that's where we have to begin. I will fight for that starting on day one, and I will not rest until I see Medicare for all passed. There are a number of things we have to do that we can stabilize the healthcare economy until we get there, but it all starts with Medicare for all as the destination.
Thank you very much. So now we will go to the closing statements. Each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes to give their closing statement. I'm just going to reverse that we did the opening statements in, which will be Alexis, Ethan, and then Kiambo. So whenever you're ready, please let us know. Go ahead. Sorry,
Thank you everyone for being here and everyone online. If you don't know me, I'm a nerd. I have a computer science degree. My favorite app is Libby. I'm also a queer mom of 2. Happy Pride. It's my favorite month. I like to say gay every day in June. And every day, all year long, really, let's be honest. I like to read statutes for fun. I like to read bill texts for fun. One of the things that me and my nerd friends did at the CFPB is we were like, look, nothing's getting through Congress. How do we do this with the law that we already have? I spent 10 years of my life fighting for students at cancellation, and the way that we did that is we found this law from the 1990s called Borrower Defense to Repayment that said if your school violates state law, you can get your federal student debt canceled. And we got over $2 billion in debt canceled for people who attended for-profit colleges. The main person who did that is this woman named Eileen Connor, who works at the Project on Predatory Student Lending, who is my hero and is lovely. But we have to be creative. And we have to work in coalitions. Like, no matter who we elect to the 6th district, no one person is going to be able to change Congress, right? I'm running because I want to expand the squad. I want to expand the cadre if possible. For too long, for decades, we've had this financialization mindset. We've, starting with Bill Clinton, we've let the right dictate the terms of the debate. How do we pay for it? I could tell you really boring stuff about the Federal Reserve. But our budget as a country is not the same as our budget as a family. We print money at the Federal Reserve. The CFPB was paid directly from the profits of the Federal Reserve. So much more is possible than politicians ever admit. They are just keeping us in the place that we are because they're trying to enrich the 1%, essentially. My background is from Occupy Wall Street. I've never really let go of that 1% framing. I think it really matches, and I'm at time. But if you have never seen it before, Google me and Jay-Z. I was on Real Time with Bill Maher once, and I made Jay-Z laugh, and that's the pride of my lifetime.
Thank you very much. Next is to be Ethan.
Everything I fight for in Washington comes down to three things. And I'm going to sound like a broken record. Well, that's because I keep thinking that these are the important things. Affordability means Medicare for all. That's the destination, full stop. But I'm going to say something that a lot of people want. We weren't going to get there by building towards it and fighting just for it for day one, not by promising you a miracle and giving you a press release. No family in Frederick County should have to choose between insulin and rent. We're going to continue to fight for that to make it a reality. Accountability means a campaign that people paid for and nobody else. Nothing from corporate PACs, nothing from big tech, big oil, big pharma, and nothing from APAC. Because when a lobby writes you six-figure checks and calls you one of theirs, you stop representing the people who elected you. That's not a policy disagreement, that's corruption, and I won't take a dime of it. So I'm not following anyone and I'm not buying anything, I'm earning it. And community means showing up even when it might cost you something. I'll fight for a federal moratorium on data centers from day one, enforceable, immediate, and real. The people of Adamstown didn't vote to hand their roads and their water to a corporate campus. Neither did the families in Dickerson or Westernport, or any other town that finds out the deal's only been done when the bulldozers show up. That's exactly who Washington is built to leave behind, and that's exactly who I'm running for. My opponents don't think they owe you an explanation for why they do what they do, but I do. No pre-screened questions, no surrogates, and no consultants deciding what I get to say. And that's not going to change when I get to Washington. I'm not asking for your trust, I'm just asking you to hold me to it.
Thank you very much. And Kiambo.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank everyone at the Central Committee and all the folks being here today. For me, this is who we are today. This is not the America I know and people I grew up with. And the convict right in their top of their folks, these people, they're not George W., they're not Michael Steele, they're not Kamala Harris, they're not Biden. These are folks, they're definitely not a John McCain. These are all folks that they try to target because these folks will at least, if we agree with all their policies and things they were doing, they could at least hold their heads up high and we can try to disagree on different policy procedures and things. So for me, and I feel Delaney and Trone have shown who they are based on their past and current votes. And I don't want to hear what they vote their party majority of the time, so did Strong Thurman did as well. So for me, and I don't say this as a joke, I would give my life for my country, and I would give my life to make sure each individual in this room has a better opportunity. That's not being said lightly or as a joke, because so many other people, Heather Heyer, bad people who gave their lives, Schwarmer and all those young Cheney, the ones who died in Mississippi trying to get black help and black people registered to vote. These are folks who really gave something of themselves. And I think we need to be reminded of that. This is not an easy journey. It will not always be fair. We will not get everything we want, but sometimes we get what we need. So I think every day is exactly the same, but it depends what each of you decide to do with it. And for me, when you come into this life, you look like your family. When you go out, you look like your choices. So how do you want to look? Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the candidates. Thank you so much for giving a hand, please, for all the three candidates who are here. Thank you for folks at home watching on the live stream, and hope you guys have a wonderful day. I'm turning to Mary for some closing comments.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate again for you serving as our moderator and to those that assisted today. I did forget to mention earlier, which I think someone had asked earlier, who was the candidates who did not appear. So all candidates, all 8 candidates were invited. We did not hear back from Daniel Krakower. I don't know if that's how you pronounce the last name. We did not hear back from him. April's team, April and David were not available. And then these are the 5 that confirmed participation, and I'm not sure exactly what happened with George and Altimont, but Ethan and Alexis, Kiambo, thank you so much for being here with us today. And thank you to everyone again that came, and those that are watching. We hope that you found this forum informational for you, and that it assists in your decision making. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you all so much. Don't forget, early voting begins next Thursday, the 11th, going through the 18th, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Urbana Library, Thurmont, Liberty Fire Activity Hall, the Middletown Activity Hall, and Trinity Recreation Center. And of course, you have the mail-in balloting that you can drop in the drop box or put in the mail. If you put it in the mail, remember the postmark. Make sure you get the postmark because they've changed the postmark rule. This year, it now is postmarked at the processing center, not at the post office when you drop it off. So there will be a few day delay in that. And also remember, you can drop it off in any drop box that is available. You can visit Frederick County Board of Elections website to get all of the sites. And then of course, primary day itself, June 23rd from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at your assigned polling place. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Thanks so much.